us start? Thank you. Pretty soon we'll be able to say, welcome to Carmel, which was Westfield.
Okay, I have 7 o'clock. Beautiful spring day in Westfield. Good to have you all here for our second meeting of March 2021. So if you would join me first in the Pledge of Allegiance, Brad Ruggles will then lead us in an invocation. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pastor Ruggles of the Inspire Church on 181st Street. Pleasure to have you here.
Good to be here. Thank you. Can we pray? There we go. All right, can we pray? God, we come together as a community, humbly asking for your wisdom and guidance and direction, both for our elected officials and everybody with a vested interest in seeing our city thrive and prosper. Pray especially tonight as we're coming off of a long year, and our community is tired and is restless. And God, I just pray, first of all, for our community, for health and safety, that you would shield and protect each and every person here, especially the vulnerable. And Lord, I pray that we as a community would be able to continue to come together, to link arms with one another instead of throwing stones at one another, that we would come together in praise of the common good, seeking what you have for us and for our community. And I pray, God, for your continued rest for those who are still seeking rest and recovery, Lord. Your word says that to anyone who is weary, to come to you and that you would give them rest. And so we pray that, Father, for our community, our state, and our nation, that we'd be able to move forward in hope, seeking a brighter future. We thank you. Amen.
Brad, thank you. Kind of sounded like God was answering us there for a second.
Something was going on there, yeah.
Inspire Church, for those of you, is right on 181, immediately west of US 31, directly south of the Grand Junction Brewing Company, and they share a building, huh? Only in Westfield can we have that kind of location. But wonderful church, is attracting a lot of all age of people. I'd urge you to take a look. They've done a wonderful job. They're the ones that sponsor normally our Easter egg drop, but I guess we're not going to have that again this year, huh? Maybe next year. That has been a huge part of Westfield, is the Easter egg drop out of Grand Park. So thank you for doing that. We'll get back to it next year, right? Very good. Thank you for being here.
All right, let's open the meeting. Cindy Gossard, would you please take the roll, note the presence of quorum? Cindy?
Joe Edwards,
Here.
Troy Patton,
Here.
Scott Fry,
Here.
Mike John,
Here.
Cindy Spaltieri. Here. Jake Gilbert,
Here.
Scott Willis.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you. The first item of business is the approval of the minutes. Does anyone have any additions or changes to the minutes of March 8th, 2021?
Do you have changes to the agenda, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Announcing any changes to the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? Hearing no changes. No changes, okay. Moving on to approval of the minutes. Does anyone have any additions or changes to the minutes of March 8th, 2021? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
The motion was made by Joe Edwards. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Jake Gilbert. Can we do a voice approval, please? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Aye.
Okay, ayes have it. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the claims documents, the docket for March 22nd, 2021. Does anyone have any questions regarding the claims docket?
I have one if I could ask, and this is more something that's not on there, which is why I was kind of wondering, is this might be more for the clerk treasurer. I haven't seen any invoices lately for TAP, and I know that TAP is representing us legally as a city and also in the examination, and I'm just kind of confused because I didn't see anything, wondering if we're missing something there.
We haven't received any invoices for the lawsuits or for the retainer. I believe it's $240,000 a year. We haven't received any invoices for non-retainer items. And last I checked, from August to January, we've only paid TAP around, I think, $20,000. I don't know if that's for the review or not, but I believe that's all we paid.
Okay, that just seemed odd to me. I was kind of expecting to see claims on there, so. Is
Well,
there
like
anyone
you
from
said, we
TAP
haven't
that wants one?
Yeah, we haven't gotten any yet, so as soon as we do,
Okay. I would expect to see those invoices soon. Is that correct, Cindy Gosser?
yeah, like I said, we've not received any for anything other than maybe from August, like I said, to January's last I checked, and we paid them about $20,000. There's nothing for retainer or non-retainer or for the lawsuits.
Okay.
So I don't have any.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions regarding the docket? Can I have a motion to approve the docket as presented?
Jake Gilbert, so moved.
Do you have a second?
This is Scott Wills, I'll second.
Thank you, Jake. Scott. Let's do a voice acclamation again. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on then to miscellaneous business and special recognition. We have none this evening. The next item of business is old business, Resolution 21-103, approving the proposed term sheet for the development of certain property of the city. The council introduction was made on March 8th. We're up for adoption consideration this evening. And this is the resolution that has to do with the mixed-use development adjacent to Grand Junction Plaza. It's the request for this, basically for the city to participate in a joint agreement for the development of a garage facility. Is there a presentation at this point? Justin or Todd?
Members of council, what you have before you is what was presented to you at your previous meeting, so there have been no changes, no further dialogue with the representative of Old Town. I think I have responded to a few inquiries from council, so there's no changes from what you considered was introduced at your last meeting.
So the basic change is the garage, the enlarged garage, I should say, where there was one proposed for around 200, now there'll be 400 spaces.
Approved development agreement, there's surface parking. This contemplates and represents a garage structure that is anywhere from 300 to 400 spaces, depending on what the market bears once it's put to bid. If I understood your question correctly.
Well, he was gonna have one anyhow, of some sorts for the residents, but we are enlarging it for other people to use in
Yeah.
some form.
That's correct. I mean, it's a public-private partnership wherein we'll have spaces available for public parking at no additional cost.
It needs it, and I'm not arguing about that at all, but I just want to be sure. And then there was some addition about the encapsulation of the drain and also the Cherry Street Bridge. I thought county was the primary bridge builder in this.
That is correct, based upon a certain length of bridge span end to end, and the reason it's in this agreement, because it helps facilitate the development of his phase 2 on the Midland portion. So we wanted to embody that in this agreement, so it was not going to be overlooked, and Jeremy and I have spoken about that. He's already reached out to the county to start that process.
Those are my questions.
I have a real quick question, and I know Justin's here. I had sent Justin an email, and I don't know if you got that, about the parking garage and the Cherry Street Bridge, but I never got a response on that.
Good evening, Justin Moffett with Old Town. Did not see your email, but glad to answer your questions tonight.
Okay.
Can you specifically?
Yeah,
Ask what
so I just had 2 questions, and I think I prefaced it by saying, hey, look, I'm really, I think this is a good project. And it's not that I'm against it, frankly. But there was 2 questions I had, and one actually had to do with the garage, is that the one question was, a long time ago, you showed us an initial plan that didn't have the parking garage in there and had space set aside for parking. And there's gonna be so much parking in that plan. And now with this new term sheet or facility that we're contemplating, that we are, I think it's $12 million approximately. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But what is the additional value that you're getting by not having to provide your own parking? And that, because in all fairness, like I said, actually, Justin, I think this is a phenomenal looking plan. I've said that, even the people that don't want me to vote for it, I've said I actually think it looks really good. But I'm going to tell you, I don't want to subsidize your parking, frankly.
Understood.
So that was really one of my main questions.
Let me provide a little clarity around kind of the whole parking situation. I think this will answer Mr. Edwards' question as well. We have an existing approval that was adopted by the council into the year 2019. So we could do a developer bond, so use the increment, the TIF increment off of the project to pay for our own infrastructure and our own parking needs. The concept plan that we initially sought approval on had surface parking and a modest amount of podium parking, some additional spaces underneath the buildings. We were just able to park our own project, so no additional public parking in our project. So the resources that we were given approval to use through the TIF process for the originally approved plan just satisfied our own parking needs, and that we called the if but for test. The reason that the state legislature has allowed us to use this TIF mechanism is that the market rents derived from the project were not sufficient to pay for both the parking and infrastructure and the project that we were proposing to build. So it's effectively, the TIF was the gap filler to allow us to build the project that was originally proposed. Okay, so no specific public benefit for parking. The public benefit, the theory of public benefit in the long term is that we now have a property that's assessed far more than it otherwise would be on its own if we were to just completely surface park it and build market rate product. And so when the TIF bond expires at the end of the 25-year period or so, the assessed value of the increment in place is far greater than what could have happened without the TIF process. So sorry to go down that trail with the TIF. So that was the justification for the original project. As we started having community dialogue about the critical needs of parking downtown, and we're not going to be the single solution with this project for all the parking. And I think the city's working on providing parking in different nodes throughout the downtown. So this was just supplementary. This wasn't supposed to be the singular solution to downtown. But it was, how can we, in our project, provide additional parking above and beyond what we need? That was the reason for this ask. In addition to building a parking garage that supports our needs for our tenants and additional public parking, we pulled in this additional phase of the project. So everybody's aware that we've proposed an expansion to Union Square. And the benefit there is that it provides some immediate parking relief. We can provide surface parking now for the downtown. But combined with the original Union Square project and upgrading the parking solution there, so we're going from a mix of podium and surface and adding probably 150 to 200 spaces more than what was originally planned in Union Square. We're combining that now with the Phase 2 project. We'll add 250 additional surface spaces. And so combined, we're adding 650 total spaces between the two projects in downtown. And we can, I think the commitment to this process isn't approved tonight and then it's all done. We're going to continue to come back to council and dialogue and talk about, how do you feel about the plans we're proposing? We want it to be an open book process as far as understanding the financial ramifications of what we're deciding in partnership with the city administration. But we're going to be able to show you a matrix that says, hey, I'll use the Union Square Phase 1 as an example. In our current land plan, we're showing a mix of office, so some commercial Class A office at the corner, which we believe there's market demand for in downtown Westfield, 40 to 50,000 square feet, a food and beverage use that could be 20,000 square feet, and then multifamily with some light retail main level. Well, we know that office, if it gets built as planned, will not have parking needs from 5 p.m. to 8 a.m., okay? So we're not going to put 100% parking pressure on the project at all hours of the day. So in every model we've looked at any given time between the Phase 1 project and the Phase 2 project, there are 200 publicly available spaces at all times that don't exist today. So that's really the benefit the community is getting, is that we could just move forward with the existing approved project and have no additional public spaces to offer. Or we can capture the TIF from the Phase 2 and partner with the city and create enough increment to build truly available public parking long-term that the city owns. And so that's the goal, is that we're going to have 200 plus spaces that are available between the two projects at all times that don't currently exist today.
Yeah, well, and by the way, I can assure you that you probably didn't get my email, because you've always been good at responding. What was the change in the rentable square feet between the initial 2019 project and then today? With this additional $12 million?
Correct. I think we're currently looking at a bond issuance of approximately $11.9 million, of which around $1.5 million would go to soft cost, capitalized interest, city associated fees. About $10.5 million, $10.4 is direct cost for construction of the facilities. So original bond approval, just the council approved for our Phase 1 only, was $6 million that we controlled with no public benefit. Okay, so we're upsizing it for the added public spaces. In the original program, we were allowed to build the same size we're talking about now. We just had a cap on the amount of increment that we were able to derive from the project.
Same rentable square feet?
Yes.
Okay.
So we did not, where we grossed up the square footage is adding in that Phase 2 project.
Okay.
I also would like to address the Cherry Street Bridge. We just wanted to memorialize, and city administration agreed that was an outstanding issue we are working together on. The city engineer has been actively working with our engineering team. As we look at, one of the projects everybody's familiar with is the Jersey Street expansion. That would necessitate some bridge work anyhow. So this is not a project that we're saying, the city had never planned on this and it's a make or break. It was already a project in motion related to the Jersey Street improvements.
Thanks.
Justin, when you use the number 200, you're saying that's a minimum of available, so when, on a Saturday night, when no one's in the office, there will be additional.
That's the goal. The reality is, in multifamily, we'll apply like a max occupancy rate. So if we have 200 units, we're never going to be 100% full of occupied units. There's going to be probably a 5 to 10% vacancy at all times in the housing alone. Then you factor in that people aren't there all the time. We're going to have 20 to 30% vacancy of spaces at all times, just for the fact that people aren't home. And so that's where we're going to find additional vacancy. But I couldn't say, guaranteed, absolutely, those people are going to be gone. But that's why we're going to target a minimum of 200 that we know, just between the flex between use types, between office and multifamily and retail, that we know there's that extra capacity there.
Justin, have you ever looked at at how much it would cost to build just a parking structure with 200 spaces in it?
We get law of diminishing returns below 300 spaces. You start to get efficiency. So the cost per space grows as we go down. 300 seems to be the break point where we start to really get efficient, and cost per space kind of equalizes. Right now, we're seeing there's really two different product types we're looking at. One is a podium. So construction built squarely on top of the garage. And then there's what we call vertical, and typically it's a precast garage where you wrap the outside of it with construction. The precast garages are ranging from 25 to 27 a space all in, and the podiums tend to be 30 to 32 a space. So that's part of the process that we committed to going through with the city administration is really putting both options on the table. As should the council decide to allow us to move forward, come back to the city and say, we get X spaces with this construction type, pros and cons, Y spaces with this construction type. So it's a process that we've gone through with other municipalities, and we found that it's very helpful, and we take the emotion out of it and just say, here's what those dollars deliver and why, and we work and make a decision together.
Makes sense.
Can I ask a question, please? And hear an echo. So what happens if A2 is not constructed? I mean, you're not going to have the increment to cover the bond. And so that's going to have to be covered by. So my concern would be, say, Cherry Street bridge construction doesn't happen in time, that gets pushed down, something happens there. The market stalls in multifamily construction, whatever the case may be, we don't get the phase 2 started, and then that leaves us behind. And so how are we going to handle that?
I think I understood the question to say, what are we going to do if phase 2 doesn't get started? Is that fair, Cindy?
Yes.
So if you look at how we work to model the bond increment, it was a fairly conservative approach. Okay, we hedged low on the proposed assessed value per square foot. So that was one big factor. And then the way OW Crone modeled it, we didn't need all the increment from both phases to pay the debt service. So there's two factors there that really protect the city. So absolutely, if we don't have closed financing and construction start simultaneous with the bond issuance for the phase 1 garage and public-private partnership, I wouldn't advise you move forward. We'd at least want to have certainty that phase 1 increment's in place. If that phase 1 increment is in place, even with the conservative metrics that OW Crone applied to it, it would still cover around 80%, 75-80 of the total debt service on the bond. So you're talking about an exposure right now of probably, I think I don't have the numbers in front of me. I'm gonna take a guesstimate based on what the second phase kicks off, around $150,000 a year, as my memory serves me. So that's really would be the kind of risk factor you're taking on. The reality is you probably spend more than that right now on alternative parking solutions in other parts of the city. And I can't believe that the phase 2 is just going to be a goose egg forever. I think that we already are working on permitting and construction planning. I can't commit this today, but I'd say it's highly likely by the time the bond would be let, Phase 2, as far as all the approvals necessary for permitting, would be well underway. So we're talking about not a gap that you'd be exposed for this whole amount. We'd be talking about, less than 25% of the total. So the reality is, it is a solution that serves a public need. No one's saying we have excess parking and this is not needed. This solves a community need. And so if there is an exposure for a modest amount of it, obviously I have a bias, but, I would say you might determine that's an acceptable risk to take to provide that public good.
Would it also make sense, though, in a longer-term project agreement here, to have that amount that will be assessed to the long-term users of the multifamily and business, I assume, that any amounts that they pay to be able to have those spots, instead of going into the long-term maintenance fund for the short term, perhaps if it needed to be structured that way, going into repaying any shortfall? I mean, because we'd have less maintenance up front than we would have in the long term. Obviously, we'd want to see that build so the money's there in the longer term for maintenance and reconstruction if needed. But in the short term, would that be feasible to have those amounts go back into making those payments?
Councilor Spaljerik, this is Todd Bertrand. I think those are fair questions that I think we would consider those in the downrange agreements. If you recall, part of the cadence here is about 17 steps in total before we get to any bond ordinances and any project agreements. So we certainly would model those and take those costs in consideration. The exposure, as you know, it's contemplated that this would be backed by local income tax. And Mr. Moffitt is correct in that O.W. Crohn's work product reflects a conservative approach. So the phase 2 phase, all that will not be required. The increment to service this debt to the tune of approximately $140,000 of unobligated revenue coming off of those combined suballocated areas. So when we get into the proper instrument negotiation of a project agreement, that we can model those things, any revenues that are assessed to the end users, what we would do with those, we can certainly bring those forward and show you those iterations as we do our due diligence.
Okay, thank you.
I feel like we have a lot more to gain on this than we have to lose. I mean, if you look at what you have to lose, why, you never do anything. But I think this is a good project coming out of the ground. We'll, scan the cost as they come through, and we'll never know those until the bids are opened. So I think we gotta, put our boots on and take off.
So just, once again, this is a term sheet that all other subsequent agreements will be framed upon and around.
Well, the only thing I would like to add is that I think this is a project that has come to its time. It's the right time. It's the right place. We definitely need to have a parking garage downtown. We have a downtown area. We want to have a walkable city. We have to have parking to go with it. And with Justin's project, it gives us an opportunity to have a parking garage that's actually hidden within a building. Is not an eyesore. It's something that's going to be pleasant. And I support the efforts that he's making, that the city's making to make it happen. Any other comments? Do we need to take a vote on this, Todd? All right. Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 21-103.
Second.
Motion's been made to approve by Scott Willis, seconded by Joe Edwards. Cindy, would you call the roll, please?
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Cindy Spalcherry,
Yes.
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Next item of business, old business, is ordinance 21-10, which is the Woods Robinson Briggs PUD. Had a council introduction on February 8th, APC hearing on February 16th. APC recommendation came out on March 15th. It passed by 5-4, and it's up for adoption consideration this evening.
Good evening, Council. For the record, Dane Crabtree with the Community Development Department. The item before you this evening is the Woods Robinson Briggs PUD, a proposal to rezone approximately 157 acres of AGSF1 agriculture single-family rural zone property on the north side of 191st Street near the intersection of Grand Park Boulevard to a mixed-use PUD. With commercial, single-family residential, short-term rental, institutional, and an area for a public park, staff believes the project as shown before you this evening meets the intent of the family sports capital vision of the comprehensive plan for this geographic area. This item was introduced at the February 8th City Council meeting and received a public hearing at the February 16th Plan Commission meeting. Since the introduction to council, the project has gone through revisions which can be viewed in the staff report. The most significant revisions include adding a second concept plan, which shows 2 buildings at the northwest corner of Grand Park Boulevard and 191st Street, removing language that would have permitted the Director of Community Development to determine substantial compliance with the existing illustrative character exhibits for District 1, now State Highway 32 overlay architectural standards as written control. Maximum building height within District 1 has been decreased to 3 stories when adjacent to residential uses, and the park area identified on the concept plan is still to have AGSF1 as the underlying zoning district, and the amenities listed are still to be installed by the developer within a required time frame, but the Park Trailhead District is no longer required to be donated to the City of Westfield. Jim Ake, on behalf of Edge Rock Development, is present this evening and would like to make a presentation, after which he will be available for questions, and I will be available if there are questions of staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Dane. Good evening, councilors. It's my pleasure to represent Edge Rock LLC in seeking approval of ordinance 2110, requesting a rezone of approximately 157 acres. For the record, my name is Jim Ake, and I reside at 543 Potomac Court, Westfield, Indiana. And as a representative of Edge Rock, I have before me in this matter tonight with me is Birch Dalton of Edge Rock Development, Mike Lukey of David Weekly Homes, along with Ed Freeman of David Weekly Homes, and the land sellers, Mary Briggs, Todd Robinson, and Eb Obleski. This has been a long process involving a lot of input from all of you and our team. I wish to especially thank David Weekly Homes and the representative Mike Lukey and Ed Freeman for making this project doable in the first place. Second, I wish to thank the council for your input. I'd also like to thank, special thanks goes to Cindy Spoljaric, who provided us with an extensive list of written concerns, which we addressed in detail in writing through this process. The APC, to a member in their brief comments last Monday night, stated that the ordinance before you is much improved and much appreciated. The big thing we heard back from you, councilors, is that to gain your support, we would need to remove the old District 2, which was identified by the new suburban rental district, which held 300 rental units. We took those out of our plan, which resulted in fewer residences and lowered the density in our project. Your second major concern was the 3 to 5 acre park area and trailhead, which is now in District 2. This park will be managed and maintained by the developer or a willing entity. It will no longer be dedicated to the City of Westfield. On Friday, we sent each of you an email regarding the tax revenue estimates that the property is paying currently, and with your approval, what it will be paying in property tax in the future, which is significant. What was not included in the tax calculation or collection estimates are wages and the number of jobs being created. We have interested parties in the commercial district that would provide 100 new jobs at an average wage of $100,000 annually. The pickleball facility we've talked about will hire 75 to 100 people, which will be a mix of full-time and part-time hirees. Just these two facilities will create a big influx of tourism to Westfield year-round, helping to make us a four-season destination. Booking hotel rooms, filling restaurants, growing our food and beverage tax for revenue for our city. This is clearly an economic boom for us. As we look at this PUD, it aligns with the family sports capital addendums 1 and 2 of our comprehensive plan, as alluded to earlier by Dane. As an APC commissioner said, and I quote, "This is the right project at the right location at the right time." Furthermore, our PD meets the goal and vision of the Westfield, Washington comp plan to a T. I or my team members are available to answer any questions you might have for us at this time. And that concludes my remarks. So I would ask if you have any questions for us.
Mr. Hake, I've got a question. Did I understand you to say one of the potential residents is going to bring a total of 100 six-figure jobs?
That's correct.
Okay. Is there any way to elaborate on that at all?
Not at the present time. I would defer to
Okay.
Birch Dalton for this.
Birch Dalton, 3744 Slippery Rock Court. That employer is currently in Speedway, and most of their residents are in Avon and Brownsburg. And one of their sponsors is a very large technology firm based in Fishers, who's in the middle of looking for a new corporate headquarters. And so their combined operation would have 100 employees with average salary of $100,000.
Okay. Thank you. One other question, if I may. I guess I'm asking for a degree of confidence, a degree of certainty for the racket facility, and kind of a timeframe that you anticipate that.
Well, our architect I saw stuck in the back, and he'll probably hang me for this, but if we get approval from zoning, I'll green light him tomorrow to start design, which will probably take to midsummer. But I can assure you I've assembled, along with his help, a very good board, one of which is a gentleman who ran the Jewish Community Center for 20 years and built it up to 200,000 square feet. So on operating costs, I feel extremely good that we have a handle on it. 2, we have one of the top 20 in the nation pickleball players that's on our board and will be our pro already. So we're pretty knee deep into the planning, especially on the pickleball. The tennis, that was easy to do because the demand is pretty well set, you know, from high schoolers in our area. You know, we'll probably have 6 to 8 courts and have room to expand. But I'm staking a lot of money on this, and you know, it's my focus for the next 2 years. And I would say we're in a better position than we were when we started Pro X. And it got done in less than a year.
Thank you.
Birch, I have some questions. Maybe you can answer them. But there were, I talked to the man from David Weekley Construction Company, and he told me that there were going to be 400 residences and 200 rentals. Now, 200 rentals, if they're on the ground and if they're just rentals, I'm not very much in favor of that.
Right, well, I think the rentals is an error. It's more of a hotel above the white buildings you see there, the 2 to 3 stories, we're gonna put hotel units to serve Grant Park. And if you count the number of spaces there, you got approximately 350 for sale units.
But he's not gonna build rentals that sit
No,
on the
not at all. And,
My other discussion with him, he may be in the audiences,
yeah, he's right here.
it was the question about the price of the homes, and he knows this, he knows exactly what we talked about. But I think that we need to stick with a $350,000 average, or else what happens to us, 60% of our budget is police and fire about. And if we have a lot of 1% stuff out there, which are homes, and they don't generate enough money, with inflation, we slide backwards pretty quick. And so I would like to see an average of $350,000 in these homes that you're gonna put. I'm gonna put some other stuff in there too. Sometimes we come to these things, these PUDs, and we need changes. You know, this thing's been bargained out pretty hard, the way I see it. And I'm not in favor of many changes. I know, you probably can't live with that exactly, but that may be the thing that would change my mind on it. The other thing is traffic, and 191st Street is bad. I drive it, I know what it is. You get off the road and you whip it back, and you're right in front of somebody else pretty quick. So the road impact fees are gonna have to be enough that they cover this additional traffic, or we're just floating backwards. So those are and the financing on the improvements, on the fountain and all that stuff, that's gotta be assured. And if it's not, then we have a movable situation.
Well, you have about 5 questions in there, concerns.
That's correct.
Let me attack a couple. As far as changes to PUDs, I mean, I've noticed Chatham's had about 9, so things change over a large multi-use. That goes without saying. I guarantee I'll be back in for something because of market. But as far as the housing price, Michael can address it, but with the mix of size of lots and the upper northern being 450,000 range, our average of 350 will be met more likely. The lower, starting range, and Michael, I think you agree, is around 300,000? Yeah, I can speak to the housing. Okay, you'll get the housing. Now, the traffic on 191st, and I know it well too, because I'm at Grand Park virtually every day, it's on the city's thoroughfare plan, been there for a long time. And the road impact fees, when you're talking, a couple $100 million of improvement will easily cover at least our stretch of the road. I assume you got the distillery to take care of their end.
Some of that's negotiable,
Okay. Oh, it always is. But as far as, Mr. Luke, when he talks about housing, he's going to tell you he lives right across the street from here.
I know it does.
So, might you answer the question on housing, both north and south?
Sure. My name's Michael Luke. I'm the division president for David Whitley Homes, and I live at 9 East 191st Street. As Bert said, directly across the street almost from this property. First off, I don't recall, no disrespect, talking about I don't do rental houses. We build houses for individuals. Secondly, I agree to disagree with your price point because we're going to produce between $600,000 and $650,000 a house on 72 feet of lot. So that's a pretty good return for your dollar as a taxpayer and a citizen.
You don't remember talking to me?
I do remember talking to you.
Okay,
I called
all
you
right. I
on
thought
Wednesday.
you said you didn't remember. I don't know how you could forget.
But I said
such a
there was going to be
momentous event.
rental properties where we were putting the center and we replaced with a house, not rental property. So I'm sorry if I confused you, but that was never the intent. We don't do rental houses. So the tax part of it, I think, is great for the city because you're getting really a $600 to $650 house over 2 lots, which is 72 feet wide. So that's why these are high-density single-family. They yield you a lot of taxes for the city. And the people buying these homes, because we've done these before in Westfield, we did them in Carmel, we've done some other cities. People buying these are divorcees, young professionals, kids are getting out of college, move-down buyers who have homes in Florida, because they have no yards, so there's really not a family-type home. So there are for young people and professionals that don't want to have a lot of maintenance, and they want walkability to use the stores around them, the shops, to get on the trail system, and that sort of thing. So that's who those homes are for. The back part of the property more for, we get empty nesters that typically buy the 65-foot lots. We get some family buyers. That's kind of a mix. But I would say the center homes that are on the smaller lots are really workforce, professional people buying those types of homes from us.
So you think we can meet that goal?
I think they will be a great revenue source for the city. Yes, I do. And I'm a citizen here too. My kids go to school here and have graduated, so I don't want it across the street from me, obviously. I don't want to have something that doesn't look good when I live across from it, so I do have vested interest from a professional and a personal side too. Any other questions, or?
That's all my questions.
So I've got really comments more than I do questions, but Bert, you and I met over the phone or through Zoom several months ago when it passed through APC, and there's some things I didn't like about it. And you've addressed those. And I told you that if you made those changes, you had my vote. So you've got my vote. The other thing I would add to this is we got nothing but land around Grand Park, folks. And we have since Grand Park was built in 2007, 2008. We need this. We need development to happen around the park. And I think this is a good complement to what we are looking for. It fits the comprehensive plan. It'd be, I think, a great return on investment for the city. And we need to crack that ice because I'm tired of driving to Grand Park and seeing nothing but fields around it. It's supposed to be an economic driver, and this is exactly the kinds of things that we need to grow around it. So I appreciate it. I hope this happens soon. We need it. But you'll get my vote for this project.
Thank you.
I guess I would just comment similarly. I've lived here for 10 years and heard nothing but where's the development that Grand Park was supposed to bring in? And so that's why I thought this would be an easy yes, and I don't understand what we would hold out for that's going to be better. So I'm excited to see some development up there. I'm excited to see the development downtown between Old Town and this. I just think it's a great night for the city of Westfield. These two would be great developments in my mind.
Birch, I'm going to make some comments too. As you know, my background is in real estate. I've been selling real estate for 20 years in Hamilton County. Top 5% agent for 19 of those 20 years, except the year I was sick, all right? Developed, and I've built built houses, spec houses, investment houses up in Chatham area. So I'm familiar with the area. As a developer, though, I guess I've got a different opinion. And as a past licensed appraiser, all right, I just don't think that this project is the highest and best use for that land. I look around Grand Park and I see homes that have been developed on the west side of the park, and it's pretty much all developed. I look to the north side, and we're about half developed on the north side of the park at this point in time. So when I look at this property, I see a beautiful piece of property. I'm concerned with putting more high-density housing up there. And it's, again, I'm not against the housing, I just think it's a little more high density. We're talking 435 units, 235 of which are the David Weekley very dense units. And as Michael said, there's no yards. I mean, when you go to look at these units that are built off of Cary Road, basically they have gravel or stone between them because there's no daylight to grow grass. Okay, so it is a dense community there. But probably my biggest concern there is in the 11 retail buildings that you're building and you're proposing to build. You're saying those are each between 10 to 20,000 square feet. So we're roughly 180, 200,000 square feet of retail. At a time when retail is declining across the United States. A good friend of mine manages the Clay Terrace area, and they're tearing down about 60% of their retail because they can't fill those buildings. All right, there's a couple that are still viable companies, Party Tree and whatnot, and they're moving over by Village Plaza, but they can't fill them. So my concern is really, where are you gonna come up with these, 200,000 square foot of retail businesses? So that's a concern, okay. With respect to the pickleball and racquetball, if you can bring that forward, and I told Jim this before, and if I knew that for sure, you'd have my vote today, okay? But what I would like to do, even though I'm gonna vote no because of the project as a whole, I don't think it's the right fit, but I would like to thank you for everything that you've done with respect to the APC. And you've got, I think, a much improved project than where you first came in with, all right? And I hope that this works.
I'd like to address a couple issues.
Look, may I address a couple things?
Yes,
Excuse
sir.
me. A couple concerns I'd like to address. You mentioned Clay Terrace. Yeah, there is a retail regeneration going on, obviously. Very interesting statistics we were made aware of last week by the Hamilton County Tourism, who tracks visitors to Graham Park and where do they go in their off time. And the #1 destination of Graham Park visitors last year, between games, after hours, was Clay Terrace. And I asked, and they were tracked, a lot of them went to the retail stores in the Clay Terrace area. We have a very unusual retail demand in Westfield, beyond a typical city of 40,000 people, because we have 2 million additional visits to Graham Park from people from all over the country. It's a very different environment for retailers. The second thing I'd like to address was Mr. Edwards' concern about, which always piques my interest, traffic. And my response to traffic from development has always been the statement that you give us a traffic challenge and we will solve it. And I think we've proven that. In the last 10, 12 years, we've been a very fastly growing city. And with a couple of exceptions, we have stayed ahead of the traffic concerns. Our traffic accidents are unbelievably low per mile traveled, if you'll look at the statistics. And where we do have congestion issues, and I can think of 2 acute issues today. One is 161 in Union, and we have an active project there which will improve that intersection this summer. The other congestion problem that we have is downtown through State Road 32, and in our working with NDOT, we have a solution to that congestion problem. So, again, using the traffic impact fees, we've been very successful, Jeremy Lawler and his people, in addressing, using those fees. Thank goodness we have that available to address traffic issues as a result of development.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Address your 3 points from my perspective. As far as the density of the homes, as you said, you have experience in construction development. We have wood that's at $1,000, versus $460 a year ago. And that's, with COVID. So the cost of homes, all aspects of it's higher. So people demand more house versus yard. And here, we're providing the yard for them, in the lakes, in the green space, the park, the trail. So I think the world changes. You know, I grew up in a farmhouse, you know, one bathroom, you know, with 6 people. So, you know, today we wouldn't do that. Everybody has to have 2 bathrooms. As far as the retail, I believe that we're going to have a resurgence in a big way, both on national credits and local credits. And I've been fortunate enough to interview people who have developed and leased and managed the lease up of very similar lifestyle shopping centers. I'm talking Simon caliber people who've been here and have already brought ideas to who we'll use. So, you know, will I build all those buildings in one day? No. You know, I think you have a good phase program up here. The pickleball, if we build it the way we want and it competes with Naples, Florida, they do 10 to 12 million in 7 days. All right, 3,000 people from all over the world. And our goal is to do the indoor one versus the outdoor one, which you'll see in April. So I think, you know, just like Chatham or Bridgewater took many years to build out, this won't get done overnight. But I think with the quality of homes starting in phases, the pickleball, and some of the smaller commercial out front of the west part of it, I think we'll get there. But I appreciate your comments and, you know, well, I wish you would vote yes. You know, I'm not pissed off that you're voting no. You know, I believe in civil discussion. Oh, sorry. Like I said, I grew up in a farmhouse, but you know, at the end of the day, we're all, you know, there's bigger issues out there, you know, so I think it's a project that's worth doing. It's no different than we started down the path with Riverview back in 14, and we ended up with a, $50-60 million building. So, you know, I'm here to answer any other questions, but, you know, to be honest with you, I'm looking for 4 votes. So.
Mr. Dalton?
This is, could I have
Go ahead,
something
Cindy.
in here? So as you're aware, Birch is well aware, Mr. Dalton, thank you. I had to vote against this at the APC. I felt the need to. I want to say thank you for working with me on the myriad of issues I had with the project. I think you probably worked on about 85% of my concerns, which is appreciated. And I still go back to some bigger questions with this project, as you know, and I can't support it right now because of those things. But I did want to take the time to say thank you for at least working with me. I think it's a better project now. I have actually encouraged my fellow counselors to not feel guilty at all about voting for this because it was very split at the APC, and I understand reasons to vote for it and reasons to not vote for it. So again, I just wanted to say thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, I'm 0 for 2 so far, so like I said, I would respectfully like 4 votes and let us move this forward. So any other comments or questions from anybody?
I would just like to follow up again, and I'm not trying to,
Okay.
you know, beat a dead horse here, but I'm trying to figure out, in your response to Mr. Johns, you made the statement, if we get the pickleball court that we're hoping to get, something to that extent. That's really big for me. You know, I don't want to approve this based upon high-density housing. That's not, that doesn't do it for me. So I want to know, again, just how confident are we that we're going to have that facility and have that facility early in the process?
Well, it will be the first commercial out of the ground, I can assure you, and I am highly confident, and it's no different how I pulled off Starbucks, Crew, you know, Riverview, Duramark. You know, they all start with a question, you know, when you're going to get it done, if you can get it done. And, you know, with the latest push on Grand Millennium, I would have to say there's not one of my PUDs that we haven't got moving on. So it's a priority, and I'm highly confident the capital markets like it. You know, it's not being viewed as a startup because of the amount of equity I'm putting into it. So it's easily financeable on the debt side. So It is a big project. It'll probably nudge around 25 million bucks by the time we're done. But it can be built in phases, as I explained to you. You know, you start on the big shell first, and then you do the bolt-ons like we did Pro X. You know, I didn't do the office first, I did the structure first. We opened, started generating business. But, you know, I can assure you that you got 100% commitment for me to get it done.
Thank you.
Mr. Edwards, did I answer all your questions, sir? And do you understand there's no rental units now?
I don't remember the 5 questions.
Any other questions? Thank you, Birch. I think we're-
Thank you.
Well, I'd just like to conclude on behalf of Edge Rock, and Birch said it, but I can't say it enough. There are no more questions. I just ask again for your affirmative vote tonight. And I want to thank each and every member of this body, and also the APC members that aren't here, for the kind consideration and looking at this and helping us improve on what we submitted the first time. And waiting is a good thing sometimes, but it's time to now cast your vote, and I hope you vote yes for this wonderful project for the benefit of all our citizens in Westfield. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Whatever the decision is made tonight, we want to certainly thank you for all of your efforts, both you and Birch. With that said, do I have a motion to approve this project?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 21-10.
Have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion was made by Troy and seconded by Scott Willis. Cindy, would you call the vote, please?
Mike Johns,
No?
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Cindy Spalteric,
No.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Scott Willis.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-2.
Thank you.
Mr. President, may I say one last thing, please?
Of course. Never been able to stop you before.
No.
Should I make him sit down, gentlemen and ladies?
No. I just want to say thank you, and to Counselor Spoljarek and Counselor Johns. I hope as we work through the detailed development plan and we dial this in, that we'll continue to work in the same civil way, and hopefully with your help, we improve upon it to the point that you feel a little better. But thank you all.
Thank you, Birch.
Thank you, Birch.
Thank you, Bert.
All right, moving on, the next order into new business. Approval of food trucks for Sundown Garden open house dates of May 15th, July 10th, and September 18th. Kevin, you're going to speak to that?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Good evening. For the record, Kevin Todd with the Community Development Department. This item before you is, as you mentioned, is just a request to approve a food truck event for Sundown Gardens. They're looking to host 3 different open houses in 2021. And the way that our food truck ordinance is set up is the council needs to approve those events on an individual basis. So there will be 2 of these on your agenda. This is the first one.
Thank
There
you.
are members here of the Sundown Gardens team. They're here to answer questions. They don't plan to present anything.
I
Thanks.
had one quick question for you. I think, as far as COVID goes, there's a county regulation that goes along with this, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. The county health department will be involved and control that.
So it's all good at this point?
Yep.
Okay,
That's right. And each event will be checked along the way.
perfect.
Yep.
Okay. Any questions, comments, council? Can I have a motion for approval? I'll make a motion for approval.
I'll move on the first one, the Sundown Garden food truck.
Mrs. Scott Fry, I'll second it.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Cindy, would you call the roll?
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeric,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes?
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Troy Patton.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
The next item is the approval of food trucks for the Village Park Carnival from April 29th to May 9th.
Yep, yeah, and just like the item before you, before on this agenda item, the food truck ordinance simply just requires city council acknowledgement and approval of this event. This one is a one-time this year, looks like about a week or a couple weeks, so.
Okay.
And again, there's members of this group on the call if you have any questions, but they don't plan to present.
Questions from the council? Can I have a motion for the approve the food trucks for the Village Farm, Village Park Carnival?
Jake Gilbert, motion to approve the food truck for Village Park Carnival.
Scott Fry, I'll second it.
Cindy, would you call the roll, please?
Sorry, Scott Fry,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeric,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Mike Johns.
Yes,
Motion carries 7-0.
thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is Resolution 21-107, Common Council urging redevelopment commission to decline to approve agreements. It's up for adoption consideration this evening.
Mr. President, this is Manny Herzog, and I appreciate Ms. Poindexter sent these to me. I think I recognize them about 4:30 this afternoon, but I haven't had just a couple minutes to review them. But these were not on the agenda as it was posted publicly, so it can't be up for consideration unless it was approved at the beginning of the meeting to amend the agenda, which I understood nobody did. So procedurally, unfortunately, I don't think they can be considered tonight because they weren't within the notice that was publicly made available at the time the agenda was set. Obviously, when I have more of a chance to review it with Blake and everybody, be happy to have comments back, but I do appreciate Ms. Poindexter sending it to me at 4:30 anyway.
Okay.
Sorry, I'd like to make a comment about it anyways. How about that? Because I don't care whether people vote on it or not, frankly. Resolution 21-107.
Well, Mr. Patton, it's not properly up for consideration. The public
It
hasn't
doesn't
had a
matter,
chance
I'm
to-
actually talking in general, I just have a comment about it.
Well, you have comments at the end, don't you, sir? I'm just
Well-
saying, the public hasn't had a chance to review this.
I'm
It
making a
wasn't
comment
properly
about it.
noticed.
I'm not asking for a vote, I didn't call for a motion
But
for
it
a
shouldn't even
vote.
be discussed, is the point. Because the public hasn't had notice of it, sir.
I'm making a comment about the resolution, about your comment.
My comment was a procedural issue. You can say, you have comments at the end, I believe, on the agenda.
Are you the attorney or is Blake talking? I mean, I'm not sure which one's, are you acting as a city attorney today?
I'm one of the attorneys for the city, sir.
Okay, well, I would like to make a comment about
It's out of
resolution
order, Mr. Patton.
21-107.
You can address it at the very end. The public hasn't had a chance to consider these issues.
No problem, no problem.
Okay, we will hold this resolution then and present it at the next meeting.
Do the same issue, Mr. Johns, for 108 and ordinance 2121 too.
Yes.
Okay.
108.
Very good. And I'd be happy to chat with anybody in the interim before the 5th.
I have a question, if I may. I'm curious, as our city attorney, one of our city attorneys, if there was an issue with the procedure at the beginning of the council meeting, why was that not brought to our attention at that time?
That's a good question.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Yes, you understand it quite well, I think.
I'll see if I can say it again. What I mean is, as our acting attorney, one of our acting attorneys, if there was a procedural conflict that you noticed out of the gate, why was it not mentioned at the beginning of the meeting that we needed to procedurally make this announcement and make these adjustments
Got it.
to the agenda at the beginning?
I did not notice it at the beginning. I didn't have the agenda in front of me.
I'm curious, did you just a second ago say that you did receive these and notice earlier today that they would be on the agenda, though it was late?
No, I received these from Ms. Poindexter. I didn't receive anything about them being on the agenda. I
You just
believe.
thought she was randomly sending them to you?
I'm sorry, sir?
Why do you think she was sending those to you? I'm curious.
As a courtesy, because they might be on the agenda, I figured it would be a vote at the beginning, but I had no idea whether you decided not to vote on it. I didn't think there was an issue because I didn't think they were on the
So
agenda.
you did think they might be on the agenda, but you didn't look at the agenda as our legal
I looked at
counsel?
the agenda when it was set. I didn't have it in front of me here. I didn't have a piece of paper.
It's on mine. It's on the screen in front of you.
I don't have it. My screen's blank, sir. I appreciate your question.
I appreciate the answer.
Can I say, counsel, I've always understood that, and it even says the following agenda is subject to change at the discretion of the council. So I'm not sure. You might ask your attorney.
Ann, would you care to comment?
You had on your agenda earlier changes to the agenda, and you did not move to change the agenda at that point in time. I believe you probably declined to move to change your agenda because you had believed it had been changed. Mr. Herzog apparently misunderstood me when I sent them to him today for them to be on the agenda. And he and I will communicate more clearly in the future when I send him things as a courtesy so that he does understand that. And at this point in time, you will now know that if you wish for anything to be on the agenda late, as I've seen you do them before without any procedural changes, but you will move to amend your agenda at the beginning, which you can do.
Thank you, Ann.
Appreciate that, Ms. Poindexter. I'm highly disappointed in the miss there. Highly disappointed.
I am beyond highly disappointed. As Ms. Poindexter just said, it has been the practice of the council to add items to the agenda up until the time the meeting started. At no time, at all the council members' meetings that I've attended, has anyone ever objected to that. The meeting agenda, to my knowledge, is the agenda that is laid out at the time the meeting begins. That's the agenda. Do you want to change the agenda was the question? No, the agenda is as it stands. It's the agenda that is on my screen and their screens and every screen here except for apparently your screen. As the city attorney, I would have thought you would have picked up on that and pointed that problem out early on so we could have corrected it.
We have two city attorneys here, and neither one of them can point it out. That's
Is-
amazing. And we're paying for both, every single meeting. One to sit here and never say anything, and the other one to supposedly give advice to the city.
This is beyond the pale, gentlemen.
I have a question about the agenda. At what time does it constitute the agenda is set? And then therefore, would we need to propose changes once it's changed?
Yeah, as I said, as Ms. Poindexter said, you can do it at the beginning of the meeting, you can change it, but it's considered set. I believe you have a standing Wednesday pre-council meeting, at which point the agenda is set.
Okay, so
And the public notice
Wednesday-
goes out. Yeah, the public notice goes out. That's really the point. You want to give the public, not to mention Blake and me, a chance to review these issues before they're brought up. That's the only concern. Good question.
All right. For the record then, I guess Resolution 2107, 21108 and ordinance 2121 will be postponed until the next meeting. Are there any guests, any residents who wish to address the council on items not on the agenda at this time?
I do have one card this evening, Mary Briggs.
Yes, thank you. The issue I have at hand is signage in Westfield. So I have two different areas. And on US 31 and 146th Street, we have the Carmel Westfield signs, which I think is great, but you need to change it. You need to switch those letters around to be vertical. Up and down. I mean, they're up and down, but let's say you got the W is going this way, switch them around. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? And the same with Carmel. Hopefully it wouldn't cost too much, maybe just unscrew it and whip it around. But it just, drivers go through and they kind of go like this, okay. So I just say it would be easier to read. Now, the other one is a safety issue, and this is at the post office, the drive that goes into public service, the fire department, and the post office. I use the Westfield post office a lot, and I've come out, when I'm finished with business and I'm driving out, I get to the end and I stop and look, okay, nobody's coming. Twice I've pulled out, here comes a car from the west, and mostly they were women, not guys, whipping around. And they glared at me, how dare you be in my way, when they weren't there when I saw them. So it's just a short distance. If the light's green and they're coming from the west, they just whip right around, and they could T-bone someone coming out of the post office. So if we could have some kind of a sign put up there, for instance, like slow postal patrons crossing or something. But if you really think about it, it probably has happened to more people than me.
Maybe we could couple it to slow man.
Well, it was women drivers that just about T-boned me. I say yay, the male drivers.
That intersection for the post office is pretty close to 32. Probably
is.
wouldn't happen today. That was done many, many years ago. But I'll ask Jeremy Lawler, our Public Works Director, sitting right back here, to take a look at that and see if there's anything we can do.
Okay.
All right?
And thank you to everyone who voted on the Robinson, Woods, and Briggs project. It's been a long process, and my family's ready to move on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. All right, city council comments. Mr.
Hey,
Patton.
I'd like-
Go ahead. Yes.
Hey, Mike, this is Steve. I just have a question. Because we do the agenda, so what we're hearing tonight is there will be no more last-minute add-ons to the agenda from any of the departments? Is that what
No,
I heard?
no,
We just need,
Cindy, that's not what you heard. There can be last-minute additions as there were tonight, and it will be the responsibility of the president of the council to advise the members at the beginning of the meeting that there have been changes made to the agenda.
okay.
So
That's-
nothing
we
that
just
you do will
needed-
change.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Council comments?
Yeah, I have several comments.
Oh, good.
Well, number one, I'd like all of Westfield citizens to understand there's two kinds of people. There are people that actually have solutions to problems, and people that create problems. And we clearly have people that create problems, and they continue to create problems, because whether they don't get their way or whatever the case may be. In addition to that, we had a resolution that we were going to introduce tonight. And it really is nothing more than about transparency. It's about transparency to the city, to the taxpayers, the people that we represent, the children of the city, and the people that are going to be here in 10 years. And we continue to do things. Here's a great example. We're having an emergency meeting with the RDC without any input from anyone other than themselves. They can do that. But we need to have the best interests of the taxpayers represented. We don't need a yes man at the helm of any meeting, not whether it be the city council, the RDC, or anything, or any other committee. And that's what we have. And it's unfortunate that the taxpayers have to bear the burden of numerous people making decisions on the behalf of others, making agreements in the dark, handshake agreements, the whole deal. It's really unfortunate, and it's time that if people want to be part of the solution, they have that opportunity to do so. However, at this point in time, this city and the way it operates and the administration, as well as the people they've hired, continue to bring in people that, in my opinion, are a problem. And that's where we continue to head down that road. And I think you saw it here tonight. We have two city attorneys that could have advised us right at the outset. And one sitting in the pews, and the other one who's not the city attorney but acts as part of the city attorney group, didn't say a word about it. So with that being said, I'll turn it to the Finance Committee. I think we actually had a good meeting of the Finance Committee. I think we're making some good progress. I appreciate Todd Bertrand working with us, and I think we're going to do some better job with the budget process. Working from actually we talked in the special meeting where we talked about working from a bottoms-up approach with each of the directors. And I look forward to working through the budget process in more detail this year. I think that's going to benefit everyone. I think in the next meeting, we are possibly introducing a resolution or anticipate introducing a resolution to have an audit done of the city, a third-party independent audit. We talked about it sometime last year. We got sidetracked with Grand Park. But I believe we're introducing that in the next meeting. And that's all I have.
Comments?
Sure.
I can give you the ACC report unless you want to get with comments about that first.
Please, Cindy, go ahead.
Okay, mine's pretty quick. So we had the consent agenda for the Village Dental at Harmony, so that'll be nice. We had a recommendation for the PUD we considered here tonight, it was Robinson Briggs, and we approved the development plans for Bellcrest, Chatham Villages multifamily project, Caramore, and the Community Bible Fellowship Church at 161st and Oak. So that was it. Thanks.
All right, I'd like to jump in if I may. As everyone's well aware at this point, there was a resolution that we intended to bring forward tonight, Resolution 21-107. Obviously, apparently we can't talk about that right now. However, that aside, we can certainly talk about the announcement of a quote-unquote emergency meeting of the RDC this Wednesday to conduct business related to Grand Park. At this point, I would like to emphasize very, very strongly that we pump the brakes there, really get our arms around, or the RDC get their arms around the agreement, the addendums to the agreement, and as Councilor Patton had mentioned earlier, let's make sure that we're putting the taxpayers first. Let's make sure that right there with the taxpayers, 1A and 1B are the kids and the youth sports of Westfield. I think to jump into something without pumping the brakes that takes these two groups into account is a travesty. And with that, I'm done.
Any comments? I've got just a couple comments. We're going to be introducing a resolution in a couple weeks with respect to taking a look at the amount of litigation that's been happening in our city over the last several months. When we have the administration file a lawsuit against the clerk's office on Friday, dismiss it on Monday, it's craziness. What I'd like to do, before I get too frustrated here, is what we're gonna do is we're gonna turn this over to our oversight committee, once we get this resolution passed, and I'm gonna ask the oversight committee to look into what has been transpiring for the last several months with respect to attorneys and litigation within our city. I think that our taxpayers need to understand what's going on, and I think we need to maybe reassess our position, and maybe we can get some of these things done in a more prudent manner. The second thing we're going to be doing a couple weeks from now is we're going to be talking about the State Road 32 interlocal agreement with NDOT. I had very politely asked to have information provided to me regarding the cost and an update of the cost at our last meeting, and I asked that that information be provided to me by Friday, March 19th. I was assured in my meeting with the mayor on Wednesday that I would be receiving the information. And on Friday afternoon, I received an email saying that they would be happy to meet with me on Monday, April 5th, to discuss that information. That is what propagated the ordinance today. So we're going to revisit that in 2 weeks. We'll be reintroducing this ordinance, and hopefully sometime between now and then, I'll be able to sit down and get some information from the city regarding the cost, because again, as we've spoken about this since January, our goal as a council is to identify true cost and to act as a true legislative body and as an oversight body. And particularly in these times when the cost of construction is going up so quickly, in order to protect the financial obligations and of the city. So that's all I have for tonight. Thank you. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Johns. Allow me to address this agenda and the transparency. Matt? That's fixing an agenda is all about transparency. Ever since we have become a city, the administration has worked with the president of the council to agree on an agenda days before the council meeting, such that the meeting can be publicly advertised 48 hours in advance, as required by state law. That is what the public sees. Can the agenda be changed after that 48-hour publication requirement? Yes, it can. And you can do that at the beginning of the meeting. I would argue that isn't exactly transparent unless we're facing some emergency financial issue or bill that must be paid, etc. Our public generally looks at the 48-hour state-required public notification as to what is on an agenda. And I've had discussions with nearly all of you about why we try to stick to that. So we are not trying to be non-transparent to the public. You brought up issues with emergency RDC meeting. That's later this week. Its agenda has already been published. It is very public. If the public wants to show up, it's been published. I agree with Mr. Patton. We need to be transparent with what we're going to be talking about in these chambers. So I totally agree with you on that point. We need to do things exactly as the state law prescribes. And I believe, pardon me, what's the matter?
Nothing.
I believe we are doing just that. And providing the public an opportunity to view the published 48-hour agenda as to what we will be talking about. And I hope we can continue to do that. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to respond to that. The agenda, as you noted, was set on Wednesday for this council meeting. The RDC emergency meeting was made known over the weekend. Therefore, there's no coincidence. You know, again, we can say that this happened because we all want transparency. I think that's quite a stretch. When something happens over the weekend that's going to take place on Wednesday, we have today to address it. Today and today only to address it. That's no coincidence. That wasn't done by accident. So was that transparency?
So exactly what are you accusing me of?
I accuse you of nothing because your attorney's sitting right next to you, sir.
Well, your attorney's right here. Would you like for her to accuse him of something?
No, because we're happy to spend taxpayer dollars in litigation. I don't want to do that, Mr. Mayor. What I'm saying is you're utilizing transparency, yet you've taken away, you've handcuffed our only opportunity to address this issue because of the timing of it, and that was not an accident.
No, sir. I'm merely stating that the public needs to know what we will be discussing.
Any other comments? Then we'll adjourn the meeting.